So I mean, I keep coming back to this absolutely bizarre situation where, not bizarre, I mean, again, people like you and me have been calling this out for 30 years, that we've gotten to the point where, because of the drift toward an imperial presidency and because of the drift in the Republican Party toward, we don't care what the qualifications are for a president so long as he can keep us in power, that we have an American president destabilizing the entire world, not only economically, but also militarily.
And politically and diplomatically.
Yeah. And seeing nobody in the United States government who could change things. I got to say, the Democrats are out there. They're throwing the sand in the gears everywhere they possibly can. And I hear complaints all the time they're not doing enough. They are not getting the news coverage that they are doing, simply because you cannot take your eyes off what the Mad King is doing. And I'm guilty of that as anybody, because you just, I do try and look and find where the Democrats are slowing things down, but all of a sudden Trump's dropping sanctions on
sending Marines. But no, that's true. The other thing, though, too, is some of what some Democrats are doing is not supposed to be broadly public, is not supposed to be seen. Right. I mean, part of its effectiveness is the precise thing that means we can't see it and we can't recognize it. So I agree with you that it's wrong to say, the Republicans are, all about the sort of destruction and the Democrats aren't doing anything, because some of them are. Some of it we don't see. Some of it isn't strong enough or out of the box enough, but more of it's going on than we know at this moment. But then the larger question that you're pushing towards is, in this moment and in moments in the past, particularly in history, in American history, how have Americans acted when the government is so off the rails that it's no longer like, I don't like their policy. It's, what the hell? Like I just don't want any of this. And now they're going to kill Americans in this war effort for something that they haven't even bothered to give a reason for. I think somewhere I read that so far there had been 17 different reasons why this was happening. So then, even more than the Stamp Act, now we're getting down to blood and real people. What do you do in history in these moments when things are getting extreme? Now, we talked before we started this, we always bring up the 1850s, because the 1850s are a moment when the slavery question was becoming immediate and extreme, because new states were coming, and every new state that came had to decide if it was a free state or a slave state. But one of the things that happened in the mid-1850s, people responded to feeling that no one was dealing with this larger issue, was the creation of a new political party, which you've written about and know about more than anyone, the Republican Party. But to me, when I was writing about it in my last book, what was distinctive about it, or one distinctive thing about it, was they advertised themselves as the party that will fight. That they ran on this idea that they're going to fight the slave power, and there was a rhetorical power to that, and they came with guns to Congress. And I'm not saying that's great, but they were making it clear they were a different kind of politician, and people voted these different kinds of politicians in. I'm also not saying we have to wait till an election, but people saw what was happening, they didn't like it, and they thought outside of the box.
Well, so, I'm stuck back over here in the 1930s, because that's kind of the way FDR talked. He said he was going to declare war on, not war on poverty. He's going to use the war powers to address the Depression. And, when I teach FDR, I use a lot of his speeches, and I probably, in going into it, would have voted against FDR, because he was basically saying, I'm going to claim the war powers during peacetime, which at a time when there are dictators rising all around the world, to me would have been horrifying. And yet, I always say to my students that the American people have lucked out a number of times, and one of them was that FDR did not want to be a dictator.
Right.
But
despite that term, but yes.
Yeah, well, he thought nobody could do it as well as he did, and he died before he could become a dictator. But where the delta I'm interested in right now is that period between the time when the American people say WTF and the time when they actually get somebody who's willing to change things. And again, in the 1930s, it's a 4-year shift. It's a 3-year shift, really, from Hoover to FDR, and you think of the ways in which people pressured their Congress critters to do something, anything. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if of course, the momentum has been building against the Trump administration since even before he took office, since he was elected in 2024, and his numbers are in the toilet and all that sort of thing. But I wonder if the economic pain and of course the loss of our service members, which hits especially smaller, less affluent populations. I've got a
in an undeniable way.
In an undeniable way, and you're very aware of your neighbors that are in the service. I wonder if this will create enough pressure at that level to have that sort of a swing into the 2026, 2028 elections, because if anybody else is as frustrated as I am,
God, I mean, I think a lot of people are, because we're already frustrated, and then you wake up and they've gone further in and are bragging about it. Now we're sending in the Marines.
They're not going to stop. They're not.
No, they are not going to stop, and they're going to keep doing it in part because, as you said earlier, it's partly about, look at us. We want to be big and important and drop bombs and show the world how powerful we are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in the most mindless way. Why would they stop? They haven't been held accountable for anything else so far. So why would they stop now for this? And I think it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it in the way that you just did. But it feels to me, and I'm just going to say it out and out, it feels to me that we're reaching a real what the fuck moment that is past the other what the fuck moments. And that's because of what you say. Now we're moving into a realm where it's not about, as you said, democracy. It's not about policy. It's not about the world order. It's not even just about the economy. It's not about all of these things that a lot of people can think float around up here and people talk about, but they don't have a real immediate impact. This is different, and people know what war is, and people know what the death and sacrifice that go into war is. And the more they see that, and the more that is connected with a war with no purpose, the no meaning, no purpose war, sure feels to me that what right now is just frustration is going to become targeted in a way that doesn't require a lot of political thought, that just is from the gut, that just is from the heart. This is wrong. That to me gets us beyond the current moment. It moves us to a new realm of what the fuckness, which is you don't have to think or negotiate or ponder or calculate at all. You just know because of what you're seeing and because of what is happening and because it's real and it affects real people. You know it's wrong.
See, for once, I'm going to be more cynical than you are. I agree with all of those things, but I know, and I watch pretty closely, MAGA voters. And they're already justifying everything happening in Iran. They're already talking about it, whether it's, written in the stars or written by God, or this is Trump being genius, or we wanted somebody who would take on Iran when no other president would. By the way, if you notice, nobody ever talks about Eisenhower overturning the democratically elected leader of Iran in 1953. They all start in 1979.
Right. They all start in the 70s. It's true. I'm not arguing that this is going to get MAGA at all. I'm not saying this will turn everyone. I'm just saying, as far as strength of purpose on a broad scale, we're never going to get these people. I think that there's a power to this. And I think you can see that there as a more powerful version of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, in which bloodshed, Americans being killed, and there was a swell of a response to that actually at least had a little bit of an impact, at least on what ICE was pretending to do. But that was a stronger response than we've seen to anything else.
Yeah, but now I really am going to be cynical because they were both white, you know, but so the piece that I was trying to put in here is, I think a lot of people are just not paying attention to that either. And in fairness, people are busy. They got lives and they're not paid to look at politics and so on. But I'm wondering if what certainly seems to be an approaching economic crisis, even in the United States, I mean, it's going to be around the world, but I'm just suggesting that people who don't care about the Iranian ship, or don't care about the little girls, or don't care about Beirut. I mean, the fact that Lebanon is now being flattened is, I'll stop, but that they will look at the fact that gasoline is now an average, I think, of 60 cents a gallon higher than it was a week ago. And that's going to make everything more expensive. And it was already going up. I wonder if this will finally create enough of an economic crisis that people who weren't paying attention and were perfectly happy, excuse me, with Trump in office will say, listen, I don't care about any of that stuff. You can kill anybody you want, but I'm not paying an extra 75 cents a gallon for gas.
I am going to be less cynical, but I'm also going to be a historian and say it's both things. There are two reasons. And I agree with you that the bigger the economic crisis, the bigger impact it will have. That has been happening all along. And that's part of what got us in this. I do think the worse it gets, and it's going to get worse, the more people are going to object in a way that doesn't require thinking about anything except their home and their family and their lives. But I also think it's the combination of that everyday factor with a war with no purpose, with billions being spent every day and people dying. I think it might add up to one big blob of they don't care about the American people. They're killing them, they're abandoning them, the economy is horrible, and they're still sinking money into billions a day. I don't know. I feel, to me, it feels like at a certain point, and you see this often with wars, right? At a certain point, there's going to be a shift. And I think it's a combination of those things that will push it to a place where it hasn't yet gotten. Sadly, I think that this war is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
I am so sick of old white guys trying to stay out of prison, destroying countries. You know,
yeah.
You look at the images. I'm sorry, I was reading pretty heavily in Lebanon yesterday, and these poor people in Beirut, you know, just shaking their heads like there's anyway. Well, that's, you know, I guess where I started was with the American dream and what that actually looks like, and we just seem to be watching such a perversion of that. I wonder what's on the other side.
It's an abandonment of it, and the housing, the fact that young people can't afford houses is like a symptom of this larger problem that what always has been the American dream kind of doesn't exist anymore. So I don't know. I think everything that we talk about here is interwoven and related. I also think, although this isn't solving any problems, being on here and talking to you and venting the extreme frustration and outrage about what's going on is always a good thing. And I'm guessing there are some folks out watching right now who are feeling the same way, who might feel some of that too. I feel, I don't know. We can keep going and I can keep going. I feel, but it feels to me that there's going to be a gut response to this combination of things, and that the war might be something that pushes it over the edge. And the war is not two white people in Minneapolis.
Okay, so that's actually, I think, very helpful in that. I guess one of the things that frustrates me the most about this is that it's very, very hard to find a thread out. That is, you can't say, oh, I disagree with these principles, or it just is complete chaos. And for me, trying to think of what did this look like successfully in the past, and where are the places we can put pressure to make that happen again is helpful. Mm-hmm. And I guess at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is tie the economy to those principles, and wondering how that economy in the past has been tied to the principles, because the economy, I think, we know has been in trouble, but I'm looking at what's going to happen to the global order. Even if everything went back to normal today, which is not going to happen and can't happen because of the mechanics of oil extraction. And I just think somehow we have to find a way to make that frustration, people recognize that economic frustration as part of a larger political issue that can be solved if we will put our muscle behind it.
We're not disagreeing, I think. What I'm saying is everything that you're saying is true. What I'm saying is this idiotic war might be the thing that makes that register. I think you're totally right. And I think that's that has been and continues to be the big issue, is the world economic order and the way in which that's going to resonate in the United States beyond what we're imagining right now. And that's huge, and that will affect people's feelings about the government. But there has to be more than that to push us beyond where we are now. And that's why I think the war, in a sad, sad way, might be part of what helps us get past the stupidity of the now. Yeah.
I don't like this timeline.
I don't like this timeline at all, Heather. I say that all the time, like I'm scrolling around and rummaging around online, and I just think, I hate this. I hate this.
Yeah.
I hate this.
And now I'll be cheerful again. Nobody ever likes being in the middle of profound change. And I guess the good news is that we are here able to push back against not the change. I actually quite like change in some ways, but against those people who are just perverting so much of human life and the United States and, the world order and all that. And that's a good thing, that we can be with all these people working to make a better world as opposed to this. But
that's a version of what
he's not going to stop until he is stopped.
No, that's true. But what you just said before that is a version of what I was saying towards the beginning of this, which is being in this moment, and I called it a moment of extreme contingency where you don't know what the hell is going to happen next, to an extreme degree, that the bad part of that is that anything can happen, and we're living in the feeling and the reality of that moment. The good thing about that is that kind of unpredictability, that kind of the fact that things can really change can be for good. It can be a moment where the instability gets people to make good changes and not just sink into bad changes. That instability feels horrible. None of us wants it. But if we can be in the moment and come together in the moment and look ahead, this is a moment when you can actually instigate change, because everything is changing whether you want it to or not. 100%.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And that, we have been locked for more than 40 years in a certain world, a certain mindset, much of which, I was a big fan of the rules-based international order. But you're right. Now maybe we can, it wasn't perfect, but maybe we can make it better.
It has to be better. It does, but this is a moment when you can do that. Whereas in normal coasting along life, you're not gonna, no matter how much you'd like to, you're not gonna have the prod. And this moment has a lot of prods that are going to push people into places they're not used to being and that they need to be.
Well, on that cheery note, let's just urge people to stay involved in their lanes, whatever that is, protecting undocumented immigrants or, pushing back against the war or...
stand in the gears, helping people, coming together to do things, whatever you can do. And small things are not small things when they're done in large quantities. So don't think that the fact that you're doing one thing, it doesn't matter. It does. It does. Other people see you. Other people are doing it. This is how the revolution started, folks, with people, individuals, little groups all over the place, beginning to connect and people seeing in newspapers, other people are doing this too. And then you get a movement. Then you get fuel. So definitely stay in the mix, because a lot of little things is going to add up to one hell of a big thing.
I'm going to leave it on that. That's a nice cheery note to leave it on. I shouldn't read the news before we do these things.
No, I know. That's what you did. That's what you did.
That's right. That's right.
Bad.
Well, it's a time we're living through so far.
Yes,
I'm sorry, that's a main joke.
But we are living through it together.
Yes, which is always a good thing. So, so thank you everyone for being here, and we'll do it again next week, Joanne. See where we are next week.
Who the hell knows? But yes, we will be here again. There will be something to talk about. And yes, thank you, because I say this in my other things that I do online too. The fact that you are here and that there are so many of you here shows how engaged you are. And that fact alone actually gives me hope.
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. All right. Off to, it snowed here last night. It's absolutely beautiful. It's already melting. The geese are out there making other little geese, which is a little bit of a nuisance when they start to run around and get defensive with their goslings. Yes. Oh, that's you'd love this, but they get defensive. And I'm gonna work for a bit and then get out into it. Are you gonna go see your apple guy? I'm gonna see Gary the apple guy. If one of you could type Gary the apple guy in the comments so that I could take a photo of it and show him that I'm not lying when I tell him that you guys know that he exists, that would be excellent. I think he looks at me in a very dubious, like, no, Gary, you're famous. Okay, people are doing it. Gary the apple guy, lots of them. Can you? Now we're good. Excellent. I'll scroll by. Oh my God. Okay, we're good. We got a lot of Gary. Okay. All right. Well, you should also stop by, I don't know, whomever the M&M guy. I'm kidding. It's spring. I got to get into shape. All right. Love you, Joanne. Thanks for doing this.
I love you too, Heather.
Talk to y'all soon.
Bye, everybody.